What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? So tonight I'm going to be reviewing Peeping Tom, which is a film that's directed by Michael Powell that came out in 1960. So Peeping Tom is actually a $50 Patreon request from Jayda. She's been a long-time supporter of my channel. She is an active member of my Discord community, and I can't express in words how much I appreciate her friendship. And I was obviously pretty stoked to check this film out because the films that I've seen from Michael Powell thus far, or at least the ones that he's co-directed with Emmerich Pressburger, I've absolutely adored. The Red Shoes and A Matter of Life and Death. Those two films are absolutely incredible. Honestly, it's quite difficult for me to pick which one I've liked more. I mean, I think The Red Shoes is perhaps more of a cinematic achievement, but I don't know, like in terms of overall enjoyment, I think I might like A Matter of Life and Death a little bit more. I haven't seen Black Narcissist yet, but that's something that I've had on my radar for quite some time. But even just those two films alone that I've seen, I mean, at this point, it's safe to say that Michael Powell, and obviously as well as Emmerich Pressburger, they're basically cinematic legends. I mean, the cultural impact and just overall just impact on film history and the influence that they've had on other filmmakers is quite astounding. And I really, really love how much Martin Scorsese loves both of those filmmakers. I mean, he's always name dropping Michael Powell and The Red Shoes. I mean, any given opportunity for Martin Scorsese to name drop The Red Shoes, he's gonna fucking do it.
Third was, not in any order, but The Red Shoes.
I was 8 years old and I saw The Red Shoes.
I wanted to give you some idea of how the Red Shoes restoration was done.
But anyway, let's just go ahead and talk about Peeping Tom. How did I feel about this movie? Well, to put it in short, I think that this was an incredibly bold and brave film for the time. And I also enjoyed so much about it. So for those who don't know, this movie is about a serial killer that is absolutely obsessed with filming every single one of his victims. And for 1960, just from hearing that premise alone, makes it pretty easy to extrapolate why this movie was quite controversial and boundary pushing for the time. And from what I understand, if IMDb trivia serves me correctly, is that the public outcry for this movie was so bad that they pulled it from cinemas in the UK after only a 5-day theatrical release. And apparently, the director Michael Powell was basically banned from the UK in terms of being able to film anything there. I think after this, he had to basically go to Australia to make anything. And this was like pretty much one of the last prominent films that he was known for. And look, there's a lot of things about this movie that I really enjoyed, whether it be the excellent uses of colorful lighting or even lack thereof, uses of low-level lighting I thought was utilized really nicely. And then also just like the really unsettling performances from not only the lead in this movie, who gives a very, again, like off-putting, awkward, obviously very antisocial type behavior. But we get another really incredible performance from a blind character played by Maxine Audley. And I honestly think that she might be my favorite character in this movie. Which is kind of a crazy thing to say because she's not in this movie that much. And also I think the main character has loads of substance behind him. But I really think that within every scene, Maxine really commands the room. Like every single scene, I feel like she steals the show. And again, she plays a blind character, so there's this huge emphasis on amplifying her other senses. So it's her that very early on catches on to, the serial killer, our main character's mischievous behavior. And both her and the main serial killer character have this incredible scene in the third act. I mean, it is so intense, and it's probably my favorite scene in the entire movie. It's just a scene where the tension is just winding and winding and winding with really no end in sight. And it just like constantly keeps you on edge, and it's a very compelling, not only narrative moment, but it's also a compelling character moment. Especially I think for the main character, because it's a scene where we kind of get some sign of humanity from him as well. And I think that's what makes the serial killer character in this movie kind of compelling as we watch the film, because, obviously he's sick and twisted and there's no excuse for any of his actions in the movie, but the layers that this film gives to him narratively and thematically really, I think, makes him seem more obviously troubled due to childhood trauma and the things that he's had to deal with from his father. He only has this sick, twisted obsession of viewing true fear through the camera lens because of what the father has bestowed upon him. I think that's what I like most about this movie, is that I feel like there are so many different thematic layers you can read into. I mean, again, just the fact that this movie is about someone who is obsessed with viewing his own murders through a camera lens, I think has a lot to say about, our experience with film as audience members. People like us who truly adore being emotionally and intellectually stimulated by film, it's in a way kind of like making us feel like we're also sick weirdos, just like the main character. Because the medium and the art of film itself kind of does have this voyeuristic appeal and attitude to where we're just kind of like flies on the wall and we are just kind of like peeking in on these human stories and they have no way of interacting back with us. But also kind of serves as some kind of commentary on artists and filmmakers themselves about how we are kind of also obsessed with creating haunting and striking and violent images through the camera lens. And of course, from the filmmaker's perspective, it's all fictionalized and dramatized, none of it's real in any way. But I do think that there's still like kind of like a psychological statement being made about, again, our desire for this kind of medium. And even more so that Michael Powell got his son to play the serial killer's father in this movie. And I think that kind of like further shows that I think the filmmaker in a way is kind of putting himself in the chopping block here and saying that he himself is obviously not safe from this criticism. But yeah, with that aside, I think this film also does a great job at building suspense. I mean, there's these long sequences that are really drawn out, but it never feels like the pace is too slow. It always feels like the tension is continuing to build and it's rising to something big. We also get this one long sequence, like somewhere in the second act of the movie. I believe it's his second victim that we see in this movie. This duplicate actress that is basically a stand-in for the bigger actress in another movie. It's this huge scene that we get with him and her. And again, the way that entire scene is built up and the way that it's paced, the use of music in that scene as well is, I think, done very cleverly and ironically. Really, my only criticisms of this movie are basically performance-based. There are some scenes and moments in this movie where I feel like Michael Powell could have directed the actors and actresses a little bit better. Especially at the very ending, like the ending finale of this movie. His love interest, who I think, isn't incredible in this movie for the most part. I think her reactions don't feel like the most organic considering the context of everything that's happening in the finale. I kind of understand thematically what they're going for with her character. Like, I think they're trying to show you that she herself is also like, you could say is either obsessed or in love with the serial killer character. And it comes to that point where she's not really thinking rationally, despite the consequences that could come of her. But at the same time, I just feel like the flow and, again, the way that she reacts to everything, it doesn't feel the most natural or believable in some way. But obviously, I still think that this is a great movie. This has a lot of impressive qualities about it. And again, I think for the time, for Michael Powell to like push boundaries in the way that he did is absolutely commendable. So I'm going to give Peeping Tom a soft to solid 8 out of 10. I can't say that I like this movie better than The Red Shoes or Matter of Life and Death, but nevertheless, it's still an incredibly solid entry in Michael Powell's filmography. But that's all I got to say about Peeping Tom. If you really enjoyed what I had to say about the film, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.